Somebody's calendar is lying, and it ain't the one you think. 2 due dates, 1 rapper, 1 live stream that turned into a courtroom in real time, and the woman everybody bet would stay silent just walked up to the microphone and hit the lights on. She wasn't planning to speak. She spoke anyway, twice, and the second time she pulled a match out of her pocket. Before I drop the whole ledger on the table, tap that subscribe button, ring the bell, hit the like on your way through. I've got receipts stacked 3 deep tonight, and part 2 is already sitting in my drafts because this one is not ending in one video. Now back to it. Sugar, y'all better sit down because the Blueface saga just graduated from running joke to full-blown paperwork problem. Somebody close to the room is whispering the numbers don't add up, and once I walk you through it, you'll see why the whole internet is doing division on their phones tonight. Let me set the scene the short way. On February 22nd, 2026, Blueface, legal name Jonathan Porter, went live on Twitch with his girlfriend Nevaeh Akira, popped a pregnancy test on camera, and announced they were expecting. The couple looked shocked. He shouted about a Blueface baby. She cried, said cool, and the internet did what it does. Days later, a woman named Rella Coleman, Rella Baby if you've been on the timeline, went public saying she was also carrying his child. Screenshots surfaced, alleged texts, test results, and by the time Rella sat in an OBGYN's office on camera, the paperwork said her estimated due date was August 24th, 2026, and she was 8 weeks along. Then Nevaeh's own doctor visit hit the internet. Same math problem, different clip. The professional in Nevaeh's video reportedly confirmed a conception date of December 1st, 2025, and a due date of August 24th, 2026. Read that back. 2 women. Same due date. Same rapper. Same August. That's not gossip. That's arithmetic. And I want you to hold on to that word for the next 20 minutes because arithmetic is the whole frame of this breakdown. Everybody online wants to turn this into a beauty pageant, a personality debate, a who is their first argument. That is the oldest trick the internet runs. Take a story that has numbers underneath it and repackage it as a vibes contest so nobody notices the numbers. Not tonight. Tonight we're pulling the calendar out and counting on our fingers like a substitute teacher, because when 2 women hand you the same due date, the vibes stop matching and the ledger starts talking. Now, the receipts. Rella broke her silence on live after being clipped and tagged one too many times, and I want you to listen to the register of the woman speaking. She said, and I quote, "She wasn't trying to get into any of this. She was minding her business. She wasn't planning to talk back, but people kept mentioning her name and thinking she'd stay quiet, and she's never that type." That's from a reel that's been ricocheting around Instagram for 2 weeks now. That is not a press release. That's a woman who lost the fight with herself to stay silent. And there's a specific texture to her voice in that clip that matters. She's not shrieking. She's not sobbing. She sounds tired. Not sad tired. The specific tired of somebody who has been rehearsing restraint for 3 weeks and just ran out of runway. When the comments say she doesn't even sound mad, that's the giveaway. She's past mad. Past mad is where the receipts come out. Then, same live, she pivoted. She said, and I'm quoting again, that they should pop in about the fake pregnancy though, and to stop playing with her. That is a whole grenade because fake pregnancy is not a phrase that flies out of your mouth by accident. That's a phrase you've said in your kitchen. That's a phrase you've workshopped with your best friend on FaceTime at 2 in the morning. That's a phrase somebody sits on for a full week before it makes it to a live stream. And she didn't cushion it with, "I'm just saying," or "no offense, but." She dropped it flat, said stop playing, and moved to the next sentence like she wasn't holding a lit match. That is what I mean when I say she was doing math in public. She wasn't asking a question. She was presenting a conclusion. Nevaeh, for her part, allegedly booked a polygraph after Whack 100 pressed her on the timeline during a stream and posted the paperwork online to back herself up. The caption said she was tired of the false narratives about who the daddy is, and she paid for the test herself. Bold move. Effective? Different question. And I need y'all to actually hear me on this because polygraphs do not do what the internet thinks they do. Polygraph results are not admissible in most United States courts. They measure stress response, not truthfulness, and polygraph reliability is one of the most publicly contested areas of forensic science on the planet. The American Psychological Association itself has said there is little basis for polygraph accuracy, and results depend heavily on the examiner's interpretation. which means posting polygraph paperwork on Instagram accomplishes exactly one thing. It wins the comment section. It does not win the OBGYN chart. It does not win the calendar. It wins the screenshot round. And then the screenshot round ends and the calendar is still sitting there, unimpressed, waiting on August. Jaden Alexis, the mother of Blueface's two oldest children, Javon and Journey, got dragged into all this by pure association and had to publicly go on record that she was not pregnant, was not hiding an abortion, and was not part of any of this. A grown woman having to issue a statement about her own uterus because the internet ran a rumor. That is the entire texture of this story compressed into one sentence. A woman had to log on and confirm the current status of her own body because strangers with cartoon avatars decided she owed them a paternity update. That is not gossip anymore. That is a specific kind of digital citizenship where being adjacent to a chaotic famous man means the general public feels entitled to your medical records. And Jaden, of everybody in this triangle, is the one who has been trying hardest to just parent. She has the two oldest kids. She is the one whose name Rella keeps saying with something close to respect. And her reward for being the low-drama option was getting pulled into the drama anyway, because the algorithm does not reward the woman who isn't fighting. It simply refuses to leave her alone. But listen, here's the part these clips are actually telling us once you line them up in order. The Twitch reveal drops February 22nd. Within days, Rella's texts and test hit the internet. Then the doctor visits. Then whack 100 poking at Nevaeh's dates. Then the polygraph. Then Rella clocking Nevaeh on her own live and asking out loud if the whole announcement was theater. Look at the sequence. The pregnancy went public before the paperwork did. The paperwork came after the pushback. The polygraph came after the paperwork got questioned. Every piece of evidence in this story has arrived reactively, never in front of the doubt, always behind it. That pattern is not how somebody with the receipts behaves. Somebody with the receipts leads with the receipts. Somebody with an OBGYN visit on the books does not do a Twitch pop-a-stick reveal. They do a soft social post 2 weeks after the ultrasound with the sonogram tucked into a cute caption. The Twitch reveal wasn't an announcement. It was a launch event. And every launch event needs a promo cycle. What we've been watching for 3 straight weeks is the promo cycle for a pregnancy that got contested faster than the marketing team could pivot. Actually, hold that thought. Back up. The part that flipped my head sideways isn't that Rella and Nevaeh have similar due dates. It's that a whole medical professional, on camera, allegedly gave a December 1st, 2025 conception date for Nevaeh. Do the math. If she conceived December 1st, she'd have been roughly 12 weeks along at the February 22nd reveal. Not, we just found out on stream surprised. There is a specific canyon between what that announcement felt like and what the calendar allegedly says. And that canyon is exactly what Rella was pointing at with the different conception dates line. 12 weeks. Let me sit on that. 12 weeks is not. I missed a period and grabbed a test at CVS. 12 weeks is the end of the first trimester. 12 weeks is when most people have already had their first ultrasound, already told their parents, already had the conversation about whether they're keeping it. 12 weeks is not shocked reaction on Twitch. 12 weeks is a decision already made, packaged, and scheduled for a Sunday night stream during peak viewership. I'm not saying that to be cruel. The numbers don't have feelings. They just sit there and tell you what they know. Rella wasn't calling anybody a liar. She was doing math in public. Let me zoom in on one line, because it keeps ricocheting through every clip. Rella said they were fighting over a man who literally goes out and does whatever he wants. That is not a shade line. That is a thesis statement dressed in casual clothing. Because when you rewind the whole tape, every woman inside Blueface ecosystem is arguing with another woman while the man himself is stage left running the same script he ran with Christian Rock in 2023, with Jaden in 2020, and now with Nevaeh and Rella in 2026. Let me walk you through the historical echo because this is where pattern recognition actually starts to hurt. In 2020, when Jaden was pregnant with Journey, there were public back and forths about whether Blueface was fully in the picture, whether he was denying the baby, whether other women were on the roster. In 2023, the Christian Rock pregnancy became one of the most publicly litigated paternity questions in recent hip-hop memory, with him initially denying the child, later doing a DNA test on stream, and eventually pivoting to a whole reality TV arc built on the chaos. And now, in 2026, we've got a Twitch pregnancy reveal followed by a second woman with matching due dates and a polygraph on Instagram. 3 years, 3 different rounds, 1 identical play. The names on the roster keep changing. The coach doesn't. The forensic detail I keep getting stuck on is the platform. Every single one of these confrontations lives on live stream. Not court, not radio, not a magazine cover. Live. And live is a monetized environment. Kick pays. Twitch pays. Instagram bumps engagement metrics. Every argument here is being staged inside a room that literally rewards the argument. Kick has been publicly paying creators massive guaranteed contracts to move exclusive content off Twitch. Aiden Ross's reported deal, XQC's 9-figure agreement, and a rotating cast of hip-hop adjacent streamers have made Kick the loudest room in the building for this type of content. When Blueface, or anybody in his orbit, goes live and generates a viral clip, that clip is not just entertainment. It is inventory. It is a line item. It is a reason to renew the deal. Every fight, every reveal, every polygraph is a metric on somebody's dashboard. You cannot understand this saga without understanding that the platform architecture rewards this exact behavior and would starve without it. Here's a behavior detail nobody's really clocking. Blueface allegedly played a voicemail from Rella on his own stream back when she first told him she was pregnant. He didn't take that call private. He didn't handle it in a text. He put a woman's medical news on speaker for the entire chat. That is the character reference for every, and treating them like the same trophy is either a deliberate misunderstanding or a genuine refusal to read what the award even measures before firing outrage into the timeline. The category is written to recognize cultural impact, staying power, and influence across the full eligibility window, not exclusively whoever managed to release the freshest project. And if longevity and staying power are genuinely part of the equation, then an older album that refuses to lose its relevance can absolutely outweigh a brand new release that barely made it a full news cycle before evaporating. That is not favoritism dressed up as scoring. That is the category doing exactly what it was designed to do. And here is something else worth pointing out, because honestly, it is one of the funniest parts of this entire circus. Watch how quickly the goalposts shift every single time Kendrick wins something. During Grammy season, the narrative was that Kendrick Lamar was some kind of industry favorite riding a wave of favorable votes from a tiny elite. Now that Kendrick is dominating a fan-voted category built on actual public engagement and real staying power, suddenly the narrative flips again, and he is being labeled an award darling, as if that phrase is somehow supposed to sting rather than confirm that his critics cannot find one consistent piece of ground to plant a flag on. You cannot lose an argument gracefully one night, invent a fresh argument from scratch the very next morning, and then expect anybody paying attention to take you seriously by the 3rd round. The bigger picture here, and this is worth sitting with for a full minute, is how genuinely disconnected online outrage has become from real-world cultural weight. Loud opinions on social media do not automatically translate into real influence, real sales, real streaming behavior, or real staying power. What actually transfers into the real world is artistry, consistency, and measurable impact. The exact 3 things Kendrick has been stacking up relentlessly over the last several years while a portion of the internet spends its energy manufacturing new reasons to be upset about it. A lot of the loudest angry accounts posting about this when almost certainly never even opened the ballot when it was live, yet somehow found endless energy to complain about the outcome after the fact. That pattern is not unique to hip-hop either. It is the exact same behavior you see in every public vote, where people show up loudly for the results and stay dead silent during the part that actually counted. Now let me stay on Isaac Hayes' 3 for 1 beat longer, because this was not an isolated event, and pretending otherwise would be missing the pattern entirely. This has to be somewhere close to the 100th time Isaac Hayes 3 has found a creative way to slide a jab at Kendrick Lamar into a totally unrelated conversation. Every single time Kendrick Lamar accomplishes something, Isaac Hayes 3 shows up trying to reroute the credit somewhere else. Whether that means propping up Drake, propping up whichever artist happens to be nominated against Kendrick Lamar that particular cycle, or manufacturing another industry conspiracy to explain away an outcome that had nothing conspiratorial about it in the first place. At a certain point, the pattern stops looking like genuine music criticism and starts looking like a personality built entirely on being reflexively anti-Kendrick Lamar, which honestly says a lot more about Isaac Hayes III as a public figure than it will ever say about Kendrick Lamar as an artist. Even voices inside the wider hip-hop commentary space have started calling this pattern out loud. Names like Jacob B. and Well, both of whom have TD-adjacent ties and both of whom weighed in on this exact controversy in real time, have made the same point plainly. Internet arguments simply do not carry weight in the real world. Jacob B. pointed out that BET itself had already flagged Kendrick Lamar as the artist to beat heading into this category, that certain rival fan bases had a full public meltdown in the comments section over that framing alone, and that Kendrick Lamar still walked away with the trophy anyway regardless of how loud the pushback got. Jacob B. drew a direct line right back to the Grammy cycle too, reminding everybody that smear campaigns were already tried once before, hoping Kendrick Lamar would have a quiet night. And instead, Kendrick Lamar walked out of that ceremony with the loudest night of his entire career and left the building as the most awarded rapper in Grammy history. The pattern keeps repeating because the formula behind it never actually changes. Consistent output, minimal noise, results that speak louder than any tweet ever could. There is also a genuinely serious conversation buried underneath all this noise about what numbers actually mean versus what they claim to represent. Streaming counts, sales figures, and chart positions can absolutely be inflated through passive listening, meaning music playing in the background of somebody's day, in stores, in restaurants, in cars, at parties, without any single person ever actively choosing to press play. That kind of exposure pads a number without reflecting any real fan engagement. Compare that to an artist whose name trends organically without dropping a single new song, whose old album is still generating fresh conversation 2 years after release, whose concerts consistently sell out as one of the biggest touring draws in the entire genre. One of those patterns reflects passive exposure. The other reflects an actual engaged, dedicated fan base that shows up every single time. And right now, by nearly every measurable standard beyond raw inflated streaming numbers, Kendrick Lamar's audience is doing the heavy lifting in the second category, while certain other camps are quietly leaning on the first and hoping nobody notices. Even beyond the numbers debate, just look at what is genuinely dominating timelines right now in real time. A completely unrelated controversy involving another veteran artist publicly calling Kendrick Lamar's skill into question instantly became the single biggest topic in hip-hop within hours, generating more conversation, more clips, more reaction videos, and more real cultural buzz than most full album rollouts manage to produce across an entire promotional cycle. That is the kind of gravitational pull you simply cannot manufacture with a marketing budget or an industry favor. That happens because the culture is still actively watching every move connected to his name, whether Kendrick Lamar is the one making noise or simply the subject other people cannot stop talking about even when they try. Voices inside Kendrick Lamar's own camp have chimed in on this whole saga too, and their message has been refreshingly blunt. The internet's opinions and the real world's outcomes are simply not the same currency. Article after article, headline after headline, award season after award season, the pattern has been the same. Rival fan bases work themselves into a frenzy trying to manufacture doubt, trying to talk Kendrick Lamar down before the results even come in, and every single time Kendrick Lamar walks away with the trophy anyway. Loudest night of the entire ceremony included. At some point you just have to accept that opinions without receipts do not carry any real weight, and what carries weight instead is showing up, putting in the work quietly, and letting the actual output speak for itself. Which is precisely the blueprint Kendrick Lamar has followed for years now, while everybody else keeps hunting for a fresh angle to attack from. Worth mentioning, too, this whole firestorm did not stay neatly contained to Isaac Hayes III and one lone commentator. Once Kendrick Lamar's win was officially announced, it did not take long before rival fan bases connected to both Drake and J. Cole started flooding comment sections and timelines with their own version of outrage, essentially arguing that because neither of their favorites walked away with anything, somehow that invalidated Kendrick Lamar's win rather than simply reflecting the criteria as written. But here is the part that keeps getting lost every time this argument resurfaces. This is not actually a Drake versus Kendrick Lamar scoreboard, and it never was. You cannot tally up wins and losses for either artist through tweets, through comment section warfare, or through manufactured outrage cycles that dissolve within 48 hours anyway. The only scoreboard that has ever mattered in this rivalry is the one built from actual cultural impact, actual sales, actual streaming from real engaged listeners, and actual touring numbers. And on every single one of those fronts, Kendrick Lamar continues to separate himself from the pack in ways that are almost impossible to argue against with a straight face. So where does that leave the discourse right now? It leaves it exactly where it always ends up whenever this specific debate resurfaces. A 5-year unbeaten streak. 8 total trophies in a single category. A commercial monster of an album that refuses to stop performing more than a full year after release. A fan base that shows up to vote, shows up to stream, and shows up to fill arenas without needing a brand new single to justify the loyalty. And on the other side of the aisle, a rotating cast of critics who keep quietly rewriting their argument every time the previous one collapses under basic scrutiny. Plus Isaac Hayes III, who somehow managed to embarrass himself publicly trying to manufacture a snub narrative that never actually existed in the first place. None of this means the artists caught in the crossfire of this manufactured drama deserve any disrespect either. This is not really about tearing anybody else down. It is about recognizing a historic milestone when it happens in real time and refusing to let manufactured outrage rewrite what actually took place on that stage. 5 straight years has never happened before in this category. 8 total wins has never happened before in this category. And whether the loudest corners of the internet feel like accepting it out loud or not, the numbers, the streak, and the staying power all quietly agree on the same conclusion. The scoreboard has already spoken. The trophies are already on the shelf. The receipts are already public record. And every single attempt to rewrite that reality on Twitter has failed spectacularly in front of millions of people watching, whether they admit it or not. Now here is the part where I actually need you to jump in, because the comment section on this one is about to be a full-blown war zone regardless of which side you personally land on. Do you think this 5-year streak is officially the single most disrespected historic achievement in hip-hop award history? Do you think the criteria behind this category actually makes sense the way it is written? Or should every artist be forced to release something brand new every single calendar year just to even qualify for consideration? And most importantly, do you think Isaac Hayes III finally learned his lesson after this latest attempt blew up in his face on live timelines in front of everybody watching? Or is he already at home right now cooking up his next manufactured controversy as we speak? Drop your take in the comments right now, because I guarantee this section is going to be absolute chaos within the hour, and I want to see exactly who is standing on what side when the smoke finally clears.